Alright, welcome back everybody to WRPL, All Things Consumed. I'm Ben.
And I'm Steven.
So we're going to do a little This Meets That, mash up two movies and try to make a new one where the box art would say it's like this meets that. So, do you have a movie in mind? Do you need a minute to think? Because I got one.
I got one too.
Alright, let's do it.
It's going to be embarrassing if it's the same movie.
I doubt it. But... Alright, so on the count of three, let's say our movie. 1, 2, 3.
1917. This is going to be weird. Okay.
1917, Alice in Wonderland.
Alright.
Now, I haven't seen 1917, but I know the gist.
It's a war movie in one take, essentially.
One take war movie, yeah. Two guys trying to... Are they delivering a message? Or
They are delivering a message across enemy lines to save roughly 1,200 soldiers or something like that from running into an ambush, essentially.
Okay.
So
I mean, if you go the Alice in Wonderland route, you just you tell that story from a different character's perspective, like the White Rabbit. I'm late, and he's always on the run.
Oh yeah.
So the evil queen, the Queen of Hearts.
Yes.
She's gonna do some invasion on some other
with her card army,
and so he's having to run and tell people about it, and it just so happens he stumbles into Alice and whatever. But I don't think we shouldn't focus on the actual story of Alice in Wonderland. Mm-hmm. More of it's a fantasy world where crazy things happen, and then you also have this wartime story of delivering a message.
Yeah, because I love war movies.
I don't.
And I also love fantasy stuff, but we've never really seen we've seen epic battles and stuff in fantasy, and war is a constant thing that happens in fantasy worlds. It's always about what evil king do we need to overthrow, what wizard and Stark army will unleash onto the world if we don't deliver the magical gem to the wherever. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we've ever really seen too much of the effects of war on a fantasy world per se. You always just see the village burning down, sure, but I think you could tell a really interesting war story, but with magical elements to it. Mm-hmm. Where it's not a fantasy film, it's a war film. Mm-hmm. With fantasy in it. Sure.
And we've had even things Snow White and the Huntsman and stuff like that. Was that the first one or was that the second one?
Snow White and the Huntsman was the
second one. No, because it's just the Huntsman. Was it just called the Huntsman? Because
Snow White wasn't in the second one. So it was Snow White and the Huntsman, and then the Huntsman, and it doesn't matter.
Whatever. But so even at the end of that Snow White one, it had that sort of, we have to end this on a Lord of the Rings style giant battle. And it's is this really the story that you're trying to tell? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I always had this idea of it'd be fun to tell the story of some evil warlord that we see the whole story through the eyes of one of the soldiers, a goon, someone who cleans chamber pots or something like that. So they see the evil knight, the champion of the evil queen or whatever, and fighting the white knight of the good guys army, and just not knowing what they look like, what their real names are, what their backstory is. You just only hear secondhand information that gets passed down. They think they're doing the right thing, fighting for their queen or whatever, not realizing that they're just goons and they're on the wrong side. I always thought that would be an interesting take on a fantasy war story.
Yeah, because a lot of times, especially in Marvel movies, but Marvel wasn't the first to do it by any means, but typically whenever there's some evil army, it's just some faceless regime where you really don't know why these people fought, other than fear is the thing. It's just there's all these scary monsters and they just work for the bad guy just cuz. Mm-hmm. Orcs and stuff, that they were bred out of mud or whatever, in the movies, and Isengard and stuff, and they were once elves or whatever. But there's really no reason for them to be. I'm sure there's some deep lore that would explain why orcs and whatever are evil in Middle Earth, but there isn't really anything for them to be evil or other than just you guys look clean, we look scary, we're naturally enemies. It doesn't really make much sense. It's like, it'd be interesting to see like a fantasy war movie where it's like, oh, you know what, like, yeah, like clearly these guys are doing a bad thing by like coming in and invading and murdering our people, but maybe like Sauron really has a great infrastructure plan and these orcs follow him not out of like because Sauron's the only one who accepts them because they're scary looking. Maybe they follow him because it's like, yeah, he's got a great 401k plan, and if we like take over this area, it will allow us to have the land we need to harvest and like expand our infrastructure and build like more technologically advanced things that we can't in this rocky barren wasteland that we just happen to be born into. Like, we don't want to like, we tried dealing with Gondor and Rohan, but they didn't want to deal with us because they just saw us as like scary man-eating people. It's like, yeah, man flesh tastes great, but like we're willing to like eat a deer if you guys are, but like you guys have all the deer. So like we're fighting a war out of necessity for the survival of our people, not because we're just evil monsters. Like,
but they did, you know, lay waste to all the forest around Isengard, you know, to build their war machines and stuff like that. It's like, look, you had all that land. You could have farmed, but you don't want to farm. You want to invade, and you want to wipe the world clean.
You're defending the movie that I'm saying we don't need to defend. I'm saying it'd be interesting to see, like, because it's not like... Let me gather my thoughts here. Because from a writing standpoint, it's easy to go, these guys are good, these guys are bad. It doesn't matter then. It's like everyone knows the more interesting villain is a villain who has like a point or isn't like 100% evil. Like, there is logic behind it, even if it is flawed. Mm-hmm. But like, I would like to see, you know, maybe a fantasy war movie where like the people that they're fighting isn't just some monstrous evil regime. Maybe they can be scary looking, but they're not necessarily evil. Like, there could be something there, but that's not important. We're not really pitching anything. Yeah. It's just, I'm just saying we haven't seen a war film in a fantasy world per se. We've seen a fantasy world with war in it.
Yeah, for sure.
So is that just the general pitch? Is just like following the White Rabbit to deliver a message to Alice to raise the counter army, or I mean, I like that idea, but.
Yeah, it's just, I don't want this fantasy world to necessarily be elves and orcs, you know, something like that, because I like that Alice in Wonderland has living flowers and the walrus and the carpenter and stuff like that, like the caterpillar, the Cheshire cat. Let's do a fantasy that has things we haven't seen before. If it was like, say, you know, the mushroom army of living mushroom people versus the alligator man. Oh, wait, that's kind of like Super Mario Brothers. You know, but like, if it was a something.
Yeah.
I don't really have a good...
We might need to move on to a different one.
Or yeah, a real story, but yeah.
Yeah, now, would you imagine this as like an animated thing or more like the Tim Burton kind of... Because, I mean, Tim Burton, I never saw either of those versions of Alice in Wonderland.
It has a big battle with...
But, yeah, I know there's big battles and stuff, so, like, we may be
so that might have been that same movie. But I think we're missing the important 1917 stuff of two men having to relay a message. And it's like, that could be your general plot thread, but you need to have the world building of what is it that they're delivering.
Yeah.
Are they the bad guys delivering a message to other bad guys? Are they the good guys delivering a message to other good guys? What is it?
Or, you know, are they both somehow from different sides and they both have the same message and it's just like a race?
A race to...
Yeah. But maybe they need to stay together for a survival point.
Sure.
I don't really know how you would do that. It's like they both clearly want to break off, but, you know, if they're going to the front lines, both of their armies are within less than a mile of each other, so it's like they have to go the same direction anyway. And then maybe it's like they get attacked in the beginning, so it's just like, okay, like neither one of us are going to make it if we don't stick together. And so like maybe you're always on edge because like, you know, like once it gets towards the end, are they going to betray each other? Will they find some understanding, or will they go like, maybe he's not as bad as I thought, or these guys aren't the man-eating monsters that, you know, we've been pitched this whole time, and they'll go like, oh, well, these people aren't just trying to like wipe us out because they're scared of us. Like, you learn, there's something there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
and you just follow these two and just like, but it'd just be, if they're not fighting each other or like other versions of them, it's like, so they're just fighting like random monsters that come along or bandits and stuff like that. It's like their challenges would be minuscule, because like with 1917 he was always on the run from essentially like other enemies or whatever. Where like this, like if they're two guys on different sides, they can't, like, as soon as one group shows up, it's like, okay, great, join them, just murder this guy. Like they'd have to help each other get out of jams.
Yeah,
you know,
they come across the crazy bog monster or whatever, and they're each able to use their own skills to defeat it, and it's like, okay, maybe you're not as bad, and maybe we can do this together. And you wouldn't have that sort of their army showing up and it's like, oh, well, now I can be safe, and maybe they choose like, well, the things I've learned from them, can I trust my own people? I have to get this information to the wizard or whatever with him, because if I go with them, they're just going to kill my friend. And so then they decide, nope, we got to stick together. And then the one army could be like, he's a deserter, he's joined the other side, we got to go after him. Yeah, there's something there.
And see, the only problem with like fantasy as a thing is like you need to spend a lot of time world building and figure out like what kind of fantasy world we want. Because like the easy thing to do would be like the elves and men and all that kind of stuff. But like without any of that world building, we really don't have a lot to go on in terms of like setting up the movie. Where like other stuff, you can kind of write it in your head instantly, just because you're not looking at anything crazy fantastical.
Sure.
So,
I mean, spitballing, but like, say it wasn't a world of men and orcs. Say it's a world of like rats and snakes. So you have a more, whether it's they're in our world and they're having to team up, or if it is a bigger fantasy world where it's just snake people and mice people, or oh, I'm a bug and I'm a bird person, we eat you and we're just trying to live, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a human thing.
Yeah, you could do a thing where the mice or rats or whatever team up with the snakes against an army of owls. That could be cool.
Yeah.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing.
Yeah, you'd really have to figure out this world, figure out what message they're delivering. Are they each have half of an amulet that they have to give, or
Yeah.
Or like one person's running with the amulet and the other person comes and they hit and it breaks in half, and it's like, well, you can't get your half to the other person without me, and all right, we'll figure this out on the way. And they both put their amulet together. And
to the power of friendship.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of mice versus snakes and owls and stuff, I'm gonna let you borrow Mouse Guard.
You did.
I did?
Yeah, I think I read the first one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I really liked it. But I now that you say it, I think I remember
Doesn't
saying
he fight like a crab at one point? Like he's on a beach and he fights a crab?
I don't know. I can't remember if that's like the main storyline or if that's was it one of the ones where it was like a bunch of different stories and different art styles, or was it just a straight?
No, it was
okay. But yeah, I do believe he fights a crab.
It's a shame that never took off, because that just seems easy. It's
Yeah.
all there, and maybe it's a little too much like Epic or Owls of Ga'Hoole or something. Maybe the testing is kind of like, maybe this is too dark for kids, maybe this is too kiddie for adults.
Yeah, because the comics definitely don't feel like kids' books, but there is no like cursing, and there's no, I mean, they're mice, there's not like nudity or anything, and like there's violence, but it's not like super bloody. I don't know, I think it makes such a cool animated series if they took it off, but maybe somewhere down the line, just because it didn't work out this time doesn't mean it won't. So anyway, if you haven't read Mouse Guard, read Mouse Guard, folks.
All right, so not every matchup that we do is going to be a winner, so all right, let's move to the next one.
I mean, I feel like last time our first one wasn't necessarily a slam dunk with a dodgeball one, but then our next one was a certified gold-plated hit.
Yeah, for sure. Oscar contender.
Oscar contender.
Sure.
full faith in that. All right.
I mean, I kind of have a movie in mind, but I would hate for you to be, it's like, it's when one person does something a little mundane and one person does something a little more fantastical, those work better, whereas if we both do fantastical, maybe it doesn't work as well. But, oh well, I don't want to give you any hints or anything or cloud your judgment, but I got a movie that's pretty unique, so.
Okay. So, you got a movie?
I got a movie.
And I got a movie. All right.
1, 2, 3.
Jurassic
Beetlejuice.
Park. Oh, okay.
Jurassic Park and Beetlejuice.
Oh, a theme park of the dead?
Oh.
That's awesome.
Okay. Like, is it the actual afterlife? Like, you can have yourself killed and you can take a vacation in the afterlife doing things dead people do, and then you get brought back?
I think, well, you could go like two ways. Either, like, you don't necessarily die, but there's some way for your soul to leave your body. And without someplace for your soul to go, you go to an afterlife-esque area, and someone's in the living world has been able to do that effect, send you to the afterlife, and then basically monetized it and made it like a Disney World, but for the dead. It's like you can live out fantasies here. You can do what it's like you can do whatever you want because you're dead. Like, there's no consequences in the real world. Like, if you like stab someone here, it's like maybe it does hurt them. I don't really know. But they don't die because everyone's already dead. It's just a playland where you can, or maybe it's like, oh, you come here, you can haunt, like real life hauntings are just people on dead vacation.
Oh.
Yeah, and you can.
Because that's one of the things that has always bugged me about ghost movies is there are no defined rules. Vampires, you have very clear rules. You could do, yes, the sunlight affects them, but crosses don't. Like, do you want to do the scientific vampires or do you want to do the more spiritual vampires? When it comes to zombies, they have rules. And you don't really deviate too much. But with ghosts, there's nothing clear. It's always like a spirit's coming to take over the body, and if you say their name or this incantation, they go back to whatever. But you don't always know why they're haunting. Why is it when they haunt you, they only, move a book really small at first, and then it turns into flying against the wall and lights and screaming and stuff like that. So that's why for horror movies, ghosts and possession movies aren't really my bag. So I kind of like this idea of like all hauntings and ghost things are just people fucking around with other people. I think you do have to kind of maybe do it's like there's been hauntings for years and stuff like that. Just because we have this technology now, how do you do the haunt? How are they being haunted? Was that just like normal ghost haunting stuff? Or can we be like, I die or I go through this process and I pick? Is it random? Can I pick a year? Is it only right now? When it's like your body's in stasis, I can go haunt someone that I know right now, but how do people get haunted for years? How is a place,
Well, see, I think it's not so much technology, because obviously you could write whatever and it doesn't matter because none of this exists either way. I think chances are what you could do is so like a society who like believed in the devil or whatever did some black magic, and they were the first people to sort of figure out that you can take someone's soul out and that you can use that soul to like haunt people or whatever. And so like that society existed, and as they grew, like they still exist, but now they've just monetized it. So in order to still like try and worship their devil, you could do this whole. I'm not even necessarily sure that that's what you need to do, unless you want to do some like, okay, we need to stop this theme park because this group is just like using this money to fund their more devious things, or like they're doing harm to people. Because maybe it's not for, maybe most people don't know because they're a secret, dark, Satan worshipping society, and this is just like a thing for like fun rich people to do or whatever. Or maybe they're pitching it as, oh, it's a theme park for the dead, and then you get there, you pay this money, and then you stay dead because they've actually just trapped your soul, and like now these people are like haunting other people because either they're being controlled to, or maybe our hero who gets sent to the, to be a haunter to sort of gather more fear and build this magic power or whatever you want to do, like for whatever reason they don't get controlled to be like this evil spirit, so they're trying to like relay messages to, maybe they haunt their family members, but not to scare them, but to be like, hey, I'm still alive, you can save me, but the secret society, like, you need to go to this building. Like, they're trying to like relate to them messages to save them, so that it becomes kind of like an adventure film that way.
Because you could play this scary,
a bunch of ways, yeah.
You could play this really fun and loose and goofy, because like Beetlejuice is a very silly afterlife, or you can do this very serious.
And like I imagine if it's a company run thing, or if it's a black magic secret society thing, or if it's just like a fun thing where it's just like, oh, this guy is just the owner of the dead park or whatever. Like, you can have him be sort of a Beetlejuice-esque character of this like wacky, kooky character who is just like, yeah, man, like maybe he's not dead, maybe he is, and it's just like, yeah, this is my place. I built this place to, because I just love hanging out with you living people or whatever. And I don't know what the world would be without it just being like a horror night at Six Flags kind of thing, where it's just like, oh, this is like the pumpkin patch of scares. Like, I don't know what the theme park would necessarily offer, but I think I like the idea of you could theoretically die, go to this place, and then you could haunt your friends or your enemies for a price. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Because that almost seems like it could be an Inception sort of thing, where it's like, hey, you want to haunt your business partner and make them go crazy, so when you come back you can take all the assets for yourself and have them committed. Or you want to go haunt your grandma because she never got over the death of her husband, and you want to make her believe that he's passed on and everything's good. Or maybe you want to be dead because, since there are no rules, you just want to like stuff your face and just like eat all the food you were never able to eat because you were...
This is actually just a prequel to Ghostbusters, and that's how it becomes Slimer.
Yeah, it's like, it's still the afterlife. You can do whatever you want. Now, in this world, are we establishing heaven and hell? Is this limbo? Is this just, this is the only thing? Like, when you die, you become a ghost and you live in the afterlife. There is no God, there is no devil. It's just, this is where your spirit goes. Or are we saying like, what?
It's one of those things where I think, for the sake of the movie, it doesn't really matter. Like, you can have, like, the guy who runs it, like, obviously whoever our main character is in the scenario, and maybe he's in the scenario by accident, and he's just like, all right, kid, well, let me tell you what's what. And then the kid, and whoever the hero is just like, so if death, if this is clearly the afterlife or some version of it, like, are we in hell? And it's like, no, we're not really in hell. And it's like, well, are we in heaven? It's like, no, not really. It's like, there's other places you can go, but like, it's kind of wishy. Like, you can do some sort of thing where you kind of like explain it without really explaining it. It's like, yeah, there's other places where you can go, but like, in this scenario, this is the only place you could go without fully dying, since you're not actually dead. We've just removed your soul. So it's limbo-esque, but it's not
nothingness.
Not nothingness. This is the place people can get trapped in before they move on to wherever it is they're gonna go, whether it is nothingness or to heaven or to hell or whatever you humans want to call it. So it's like an in-between, essentially. So you can move throughout and maybe do a thing which is like, if you want to go somewhere, you just need to think of where you want to go and open this door and then take you there. Like I said, like I imagine it as like, oh, you could do it as a fun theme park, but outside of just like dumb horror puns, like, what are you really going to get out of a theme park? Unless it's just like, oh, you're just now in essentially the Insidious world, where it's like, yeah, you have this house and you can move around, but like now you can see ghosts that have lived here before or travel through time or whatever. Like, you could write really anything you want to do in that world, because it's all made up anyway. It's just a matter, I guess, of the tone. Do you want to go hard? Do you want to go adventure, or do you want to do like silly comedy kind of thing?
So let me pitch a flip of this, because this seems more Beetlejuice than Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
Let me do the opposite. So you have your John Hammond character who has figured out a way to extract the soul of whoever
Spare no expense.
into our world.
Mm-hmm.
So then he sets up a museum theme park sort of thing where it's like, come see the soul of Hitler, and you and able to like ask him whatever questions you want. This is Genghis Khan, and this is what this is what happened to Amelia Earhart, and it's able to like kind of answer the questions that we didn't know. And I don't know if, you know, in Jurassic Park fashion, you know, the spirits break out because is this torture for them? They want to be moved on and be in the afterlife. Mm-hmm. Is this kind of fun for them because they get to see the world as it is now? Do they break out and...
Yeah, maybe this, whoever this person is, has... maybe you've already said it and I just glossed over it. But, like, has found a way... Maybe, like, you know, millions of souls die every day. He can't catch them all. But if he knows... But there is, like, a predestined time. Like, he knows when specifically someone's going to die. Like, history's kind of already been written. Mm-hmm. So if there's someone interesting that he knows would be good for his park or whatever, he just, like, goes to that. And the second that person dies and, like, comes through his gateway, essentially, he's like, I'm going to grab him up, take him, and then, like, that's... Certain souls just don't make it because this guy's been collecting them over centuries or whatever.
So is he only able to collect new souls because he knows, like, you got to grab them when they die, and he can't, you know, get the soul of a old celebrity or anything like that?
Yeah, because I think you would have to get him in real time, because, like, you're not going to grab anyone from the future. And then, but you were talking more like, oh, if he wanted someone but he didn't grab it 2,000 years ago.
Yeah. Can he get that soul? You know?
I would think not, because I don't think it really matters at that point. I think he's just been, maybe he's like this kind of trickster god kind of thing, but he can just, because I think there's only so many interesting people worth grabbing throughout history. But I guess the thing is, like, some people you don't know will be historically significant. That also doesn't really matter.
Maybe it's a thing where when you know you're about to die, you can go to this service and have him trap your soul, because we know when you pass on, there is a hell and you're probably going to go to it. But if you trap your soul on Earth, you don't have to go to the afterlife. And so he kind of creates this park where, for a price, he will trap your soul here, and yeah, you're on display for other people to see, but hey, you don't have to pay the consequences of meeting the devil.
But, like, are you just a soul in, like, a cage? Like, what are these souls doing?
I don't know. Not having to deal with eternal hellfire.
Interesting. There's a lot to unpack here. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not a clear movie, and that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But there's something here. Mm-hmm. Or do you sort of do like Ghostbusters and have these sort of ridiculous looking ghosts, like, you know, giant marshmallow people? Mm-hmm. Where, like you said, like, maybe the ghosts escape and wreak havoc, but if that's the case, that would be like, maybe the visitors don't die at all, or like there's a place in the human world where humans can go and visit these or is that what you said?
Yeah, it would be like a Jurassic Park island. People come to visit, and it's like, oh, this is the soul of that famous person who, like, set up in advance, I don't want to die, I want you to trap my soul. And so it can be kind of like, if you're rich and powerful enough, you can get your soul trapped, and you're put on display, because maybe in this world they have determined there is a heaven, there is a hell.
Gotcha. Okay.
Ghosts do exist, and if you don't want to be trapped in limbo, you don't want to be stuck haunting someone, you don't want to go to hell. I mean, everybody wants to go to heaven, or maybe we find out heaven's boring as shit, because it's like you have to live still by God's earthly rules in heaven or something. Who knows? Mm-hmm. And it's like, maybe the best thing is to just kind of have your soul trapped here. Still watch TV, talk to people. Maybe you don't ever get to eat again or have sex or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no joy, but there's no anger or hate or...
Yeah.
They're just blank slate. Interesting.
Yeah. Ghost Park.
Oh, Yo, what was our first movie again? Alice in Wonderland, 1917.
1917. Yeah.
You call it 1917, but you have the 2 dots, so it's like a time, and that's when they need. That's
they have to get to a certain point. They have digital clocks in the fantasy world.
Yes, they have to get there by what time is that? Military time.
7:17.
7:17. Yeah. Or
so they also have military time in.
Yeah.
Not we're 3 hands from sundown or anything like that. We have a clock. Yep. I guess there's sundials and stuff, but they didn't use military time.
Okay, so that's my pitch for that title until what? Yeah. Well, there was already a movie called Ghost World, which wasn't about ghosts or world. But I don't really remember what that movie was about, except for 2 kooky teenagers.
Yeah. Not wanting to grow up and leave high school and become boring adults.
Yeah. Okay. What would we call our Beetlejuice Jurassic Park hybrid?
Spirit World or World of Spirits?
Pass.
Yeah.
Alright. Do you want to try like one more and see if we...
Sure. Well, maybe we can strike gold on this.
Yeah, this is relatively short.
Yeah, so far. And we can still do a director versus director.
Oh yeah, I forgot about director. Okay.
Alright, next movie mashup. You ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Castaway.
Whiplash and Castaway. Tom Hanks and the volleyball start a band.
I think my go-to obvious is, because like with Whiplash you have, the student-teacher dynamic really overbearing to the point of breaking them. So you have 2 people, whatever their relationship are, get stranded for whatever reason, and one thinks like, because I'm older, I know what to do, I know how to survive, and it's just constantly think because there's only 2 of them, they're the superior, the other one's the inferior, and they're going to do what they say, and it kind of devolves into a Lord of the Flies type sort of dynamic.
Actually, I think that's actually like a cool idea, because maybe you have, let's just say it's an older man and a younger man, or maybe even a child, and they're stuck on this island, and obviously the kid doesn't know anything. Maybe this person either is a survivalist, like they know what to do, or maybe they don't know what to do at all, but like they're just exuding confidence, like, yeah, we need to do this in order to survive. And so the kid just takes all that as it is, and then over time, like the kid is fully capable of doing whatever needs to be done, just like the guy, and now they're on equal terms. But for a long time, because he was just a child, let's say he was like, I don't know, 4 or 5, like this person has been not only his like only thing to look up to, but like in a way his god. And it's like this guy is the reason I survive. And you kind of have that, I don't want to say Stockholm syndrome, but like he believes that this guy knows everything, but maybe this guy didn't know shit, and it's gotten them into like jams, and the kid's actually been able to like get himself out of situations. And then it's just like builds this tension of just like, you think everything you do is right, but like I'm just as good as you, but this guy's so used to being in control of this kid, now that he's breaking it, it's like just causing tension. And you could have like a really intense father, not necessarily that they be father and son, but like father-son dynamic, where it's like, does the son eventually grow up to like kill the father to surpass him or whatever? There's that could be real cool. I think it'd be interesting if we didn't see how they got on. Let's just say it's an island. I mean,
but it could be like a mountain top or something that's inaccessible to other people. Or I mean, what if it doesn't have to necessarily be an island? It's like Castaway, he's like just separated from society and can't get home. So what if it was like a bunker? This doomsday prepper is thinking the world is going to end at any moment, and they have their son or whatever, and they think the bomb's dropping or whatever, and takes him into the basement, and he's trying to like instill these things that he needs to learn how to survive in this world, but he knows, shit, I was wrong, the bombs never dropped, but I can't make myself be wrong. I can't let him see me being weak or incorrect about anything, so we're just going to live in this bomb shelter until whenever or whatever.
And we'll call it
Blast from the Past with Brendan Fraser and Alicia Silverstone.
Castlash. Whip Away.
Whip Away.
Starring J.K. Simmons.
As the son.
As the son. Yep. And the ghost of Peter O'Toole.
I was gonna say Peter O'Toole.
There's like two really old actors. I mean, Peter O'Toole, I think, died like
he's dead. He's for sure dead. That's funny.
Well, here we have some good ideas, but we don't know what the story is.
Yeah.
That's why you tune in to us, because even though we know what we're talking about, we don't know what we're talking about.
We don't know shit. We
should call this segment Dartboard, because we're just throwing ideas out and just hoping something sticks. Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, that was fun. And you wanna battle some directors against each other?
Let's battle some directors, Ben.
Okay. Put them in a little ring and like Beyblades, and we'll let her rip.
Yeah, Beyblades.
Timely reference.
Uh-huh.
Are Beyblades still around?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I saw them in Walmart. I assume that there's a cartoon still going. I don't know if that's a thing or if it's just the toys now.
That's like, we had the cartoon. It wasn't all that great, but the toys still sell.
Yeah.
So
I think I had Beyblades when I was 10, 11, whatever, when it first came out. But I went to I'll just say it was a birthday party last year, and a kid brought his Beyblades, and so kids who are 5, 6 years old are getting into Beyblades. I was it's so weird when things that I enjoyed when I was a kid are still going.
Are there much difference between each blade? Because I would think it'd just be the luck of the draw of who hits someone at the right angle first, and then they're out.
I would say that that's part of it, but I'm no expert on Beyblades. But the kid who I played with, because it was more adults at this party than children, and so of course I gravitated to it. Yeah, the kids were more fun to hang out with than the adults talking about, I don't know, their work or whatever. Who gives a shit? So this 5-year-old kid was explaining to me oh yeah, this piece does this, and if you attach these pieces, oh, and this it gives it the weight. This kid knew the science of Beyblades, which I thought was really cool that this kid was so into it. But the adult me just thought well, they're essentially the same thing, kid.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, so there are differences. I don't think they add much difference, but I'm no expert on Beyblades. I think typically if you have one that's heavier, as long as you rip it right, it's just because it's so heavy. It's not the other Beyblade isn't going to do any damage to it, just because it's so heavy and strong. It's going to be hard to tip over. But once again, it could be one of those things where if you just get under the heavy one, just for that one bit, it's too lopsided. I don't really know.
Do you have to knock it out of the arena, or is it you are just, if you are spinning and the other one stops, you win?
So I think it's a point system. Jesus Christ, how are we talking about Beyblades? So if I'm correct, it's if you both go and you both stay in, but one stops for the other, that's a point, and you win that round. If you make it burst, if they break, it's 2 points. Or if you go in and then you hit it and I think it flies out of the ring, it's an instant victory 3-point kind of thing. Okay. It's first to 3 maybe.
Okay.
At least that's my thought process. It's you hit it so hard, it flies out the ring, you won. There's no going back.
That'd be cool if there was if you could add obstacles, not anything crazy, but you put in this little cube, and that creates a barrier. So it's not just an open world thing. It's well, I get one hazard piece, and so I'm going to put this little hump, and maybe the hump helps you. It could avoid being hit, or maybe it fucks you up, or this is just a line that makes it you can't cross. And Yeah.
I mean, I think they do sell different arenas that have things. Like the one that we played on had like pits in the corner.
Okay.
So you could bump someone in the pit, but mostly like I think most of the arenas are designed where the slope slightly inward, so like no matter what, your blades are going to like go into the middle, so they hit each other. But sometimes like it also just depends on how you rip it, and, you know, where it lands. You can sort of accidentally like it lands and just shoots itself off by accident because it just caught an angle, right?
Yeah.
It's 90% luck of the draw, really, but there is, I think, some minor science to it.
Okay.
But also in the show, like they're able to like summon magical spirits out of it. So, and that's you know, oh, if I say the dragon's name, it's gonna shoot out, and like my blade, which is about to topple over, will suddenly get spinny again, like that kind of stupid stuff. Yeah. So
sounds fun. We should get some Beyblades. And that'd be a fun way to like just settle arguments. It's just like, I want Taco Bell. Well, I want McDonald's. Fuck, we're having a Beyblade battle. All right. Do you have a director?
Oh yeah, that's what we were doing.
That's what we're doing.
I want to keep this Beyblade talk in though, because
yeah, that was good shit.
That was good banter.
Yeah, because I don't know much besides it was a bunch of tops.
Yeah,
but it seems fun.
Bunch of dudes who were way past their prime, we playing Beyblades, talking about Beyblades.
Hey, it's better than people with like those like finger skate decks, you know?
Oh, tech decks?
Oh god, that's some embarrassing shit. I mean, if you can kickflip that with your fingers, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do that. But what do you do with that? You know? You just skate around with your fingers?
Well, they have like little rails sets that you can like get and just, you know.
It's
skateboarding for people who can't skateboard, I guess.
Sounds real
But it's like,
stupid.
that still requires enough skill to sort of learn how to do that.
Look at it.
So it's just like, you might as well just learn to actually skateboard. Oh, but what movie do I pick?
Because I was thinking about that when we were doing like the David Fincher, Spike Lee one, and it's like, well, what if I picked Seven or Panic Room? Like, would the Spike Lee version, you know, would I have picked that more, or Fight Club or something like that? Like, it really changes the dynamic, because it's like, oh, Michael Bay's The Island. It's like, well, I don't really care as much as seeing someone take on Transformers.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess if we can always just pick the director again, but with a different movie.
Sure, absolutely.
So,
yeah. Because there's only so many directors that have like such a unique style that works for this. Like, if I said Tony Scott, and you're like, who gives a shit? That guy sucks. I don't like Tony Scott. His movies are not very good. His directing and camera work is awful. It's all the only movie.
Wait, what's it like?
Okay,
got it.
The only movie of his I really like is Deja Vu. I just think that's a fun, good time travel movie that works pretty well. But he has a terrible shooting style.
I've seen Deja Vu. I don't remember a single frame of Deja Vu.
Yeah.
I remember the poster of Deja Vu. No idea what Deja Vu is.
You should watch Deja Vu. It's good shit. I own it. You can borrow it.
I remember, for the most part, liking it. I just don't remember. Was Paula Patton the love interest in that?
I don't remember. She is a Hispanic lady.
Paula Patton isn't Hispanic. Doesn't matter.
No. But Jim Caviezel's in it.
Ooh.
Jesus' own.
JC.
Oh, that'd be a good director. Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ.
And Braveheart.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Passion of the Christ might be. Oh, yeah, but that would be fun.
So it's like if you did, you know, Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ and Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, it's like, do you want to see Tim Burton's Passion of the Christ? That would be pretty fucking cool.
Well, is it like Tim Burton style, or is it Tim Burton trying to do like a? I never saw Big Eyes, but like where it isn't so weird. Like I want to see a weird Tim Burton movie.
Yeah. I want to see a lot more of the devil stuff. You know, that weird little devil baby that's on the woman's back. You know, Satan's in Passion of the Christ. It's like a baby, and it's got sharp teeth, and it's looking at Jesus.
The devil was in
Passion of the Christ, yeah. It's just like a little devil baby. It's a baby that looks a little deformed and is like, I'm tempting you. Because it's like when Jesus is on the Christ, it's kind of like, give up, man. Renounce God. And he's like, look, I'm here. I can end this for you. Yeah. Little devil baby.
Wow, I must have missed that part.
It doesn't have like horns and a tail or anything.
I've only seen it once, and I think I was kind of like checking my phone every now and then, so I might have missed stuff. Because I remember watching, going like, "Oh, this is good," and then as I kept watching, I was like, "Oh, this is like not a fun watch."
No.
Like this really is like 2-hour torture movie.
Yeah. There's a part when the whip catches his forehead.
Oh,
Oh my god, and his ribs. Ooh, that's tough. Steve, you have your director?
I do, and I have my movie as well.
Oh, me as well. All right, cool. 1, 2, 3.
Steven Toro. Oh.
That's funny that you...
Yeah. That's the first one.
Yeah. Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds.
Oh. Well, I think this will be good for my director. I don't know about his version of War of the Worlds. Or, he would make a good War of the Worlds. I don't think you would make a good this. Del Toro, Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, Spielberg's Pan's Labyrinth. I bet it would have that fake sheen like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull has. Everything's just a little too clean, a little too well lit. Spielberg doesn't really have grit.
Yeah. Unless it's Saving Private Ryan.
Sure, that adds to it. But Temple of Doom, Spielberg, I bet he could probably do a Pan's Labyrinth. But
maybe 80s Spielberg.
80s Spielberg. Could probably handle it, but it's...
Yeah, because Spielberg, with the face melting of Ark of the Covenant, even though Spielberg isn't really a horror guy, I think he understands horror elements, and obviously all the Indiana Jones movies are very fantasy-esque, so he's kind of got that. And
he's doesn't shy away from, the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park or E.T., doing practical animatronics and puppets and stuff like that. I think he could probably have some cool monsters.
Yeah.
Because he would probably get Stan Winston to do it, because that's one of his go-to guys. But does he have the imagination to make the Pale Man, you know? And I don't think it would be as mean and not nearly as grotesque and violent.
Yeah, because... Also, the great thing about Spielberg is there's so few directors who work as well with children, and Pan's Labyrinth is the story of this child, and I think he could do a good movie. He could make Pan's Labyrinth his own, but I don't think it'd be, because when I first saw Pan's Labyrinth, I thought it was someone's just like, hey, come over and watch this, and pitch it to me as this fantasy film of this girl going on this adventure. I didn't know it was during a civil war in Spain or wherever it was, and I'm seeing that guy's
cheek getting
cut and stuff. I was like, whoa, this is not a thing I was expecting.
Yeah.
And the Pale Man is terrifying.
Absolutely.
So cool.
But so if you take
but I don't think Spielberg does that stuff.
You take Saving Private Ryan, you take Schindler's List. That works for all the real world grit that she goes through. True. And then you take your fantastical Jurassic Parks, Indiana Jones, and stuff like that. And so I think Spielberg would make a very good Pan's Labyrinth that would probably be a commercial success. I bet people would go you've never seen anything like this from Steven Spielberg. This is crazy. And I think it would be a beloved movie for sure.
Although Pan's Labyrinth is sort of beloved, at least in the film world.
Yes.
I think it suffered because no one knew who Del Toro really was until this movie, because it got Oscar noms and stuff. Where now people do. I think you're right. If Spielberg had made this 80-ish era, before he got all CG, it could have been pretty well received.
Yeah, I got two quick little Pan's Labyrinth stories. I probably have told you both of them, but I was living in Sacramento when Pan's Labyrinth came out, and I had to see it. I didn't have a car. I didn't know a lot of people. I had, only lived there a year, or within a year. So I had to take public transport to get to this one specific theater that was showing it, and it was a small theater. They didn't even have I don't think they even had real tickets. It was more raffle tickets that they would just oh, you're the orange one, you're in theater too, and they would.
Which is funny that it's always been a symbol for movies. It's a raffle ticket looking thing.
But that's a fair thing, a carnival thing.
I've never actually seen a raffle
I could be wrong, but I just remember the ticket being really janky, and then walking out that theater just going wow, what did I see? And then I see my bus come and having to book it, because if I didn't get that bus, I was 10 miles away from my home with no way of getting home, with I don't even know if I had a cell phone at that time, but I had to book it, and luckily I got it like last second. Like the movie got out perfect timing in order for me to get that bus.
I mean, did you have any idea how long was it, like, did you have a feeling like it was going to cut it close and you were like,
yes,
screw it, I'm going
to risk it. Yeah.
Okay. That shows your dedication to movies, that you're willing to not have a ride or any way to get home just to see this movie.
There were, plenty of years where I was living in a new city, and it was just like, I was lucky living in Sacramento that I worked next to 2 theaters. I think it was a Regal and a Century, and I was able to just walk to those, but they didn't always play all the stuff I wanted to. And like, I would take 40-minute light rail trains to go to specific theaters to go see Brick or Hard Candy or something like that, and then have to take another one back, and it'd be like, that'd be my day, because it takes so long to get there, and maybe I missed the showtime because of the bus was late or whatever, and I'd have to wait around for the next showing, and like that's what I did with my time. My second quick story, when I worked for Blockbuster, Pan's Labyrinth was on videos. I was living in Vegas at the time, and people would always go like, oh, what do you suggest, and blah blah blah, and I was like, you gotta see Pan's Labyrinth, this movie is fucking great. We had so many people come back and demand refunds because...
I was going to say, I love Pan's Labyrinth. I would never recommend it to anyone.
I don't care what your preferences are. You ask me what movies I want to see, I'm going to tell you the good movies.
No, you're setting these people up for failure. That's not customer service.
And it wasn't because this movie's weird and I don't get it. It was because there was no dub. They had to watch it subtitled, and they refused. And it's like, it doesn't say it on the box. And like, technically it does. It's very tiny in the small like information, but it's like, you can't watch this amazing, fantastical movie just because you got to read subtitles. It's not like there's even a ton of talking in that movie. It's so visual.
That was the other thing. Like, I think I saw it when I was like 17, maybe 18, and I never had heard of it when the girl I was seeing showed it to me, but she. I had no idea it was in subtitles, and at that time I was like not the biggest person in subtitles. Like, I wasn't necessarily against them, but I wasn't like trying to see that version. But I'm glad I did. Like, I prefer subtitles, and I'm watching a foreign film than a dub. So yeah, I see why that would upset people. But Pan's Labyrinth is great.
Yeah. So let's look at the flip. So Guillermo del Toro's War of the Worlds would be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the War of the Worlds story. It's simple. The aliens aren't that cool looking. I just think he would handle, especially the one that Steven Spielberg did with Tom Cruise, he would have handled it so much better. It definitely would have been darker.
Yeah.
The sun probably would have died and not just shown up at the end going like, oh, I survived that giant fireball I walked into. Because he literally walks over the hill, there's an explosion, and then that's the end. Like, he should be dead. But I think just from like a creature design standpoint, because those aliens, when creeping around in the basement and stuff, they just looked like crappier Independence Day aliens. They weren't interesting at all, and the tripods are kind of a generic alien ship.
They're an interesting looking ship just from like, because there's such like a giant head / body and just like the tentacle like legs or whatever. So I think visually they're interesting, but they're like, that design specifically for Spielberg's I didn't think was like exciting to look at. Like, I think if you saw that in person, obviously you'd be like, that's scary. But like, I think you could have definitely designed it a little bit more interesting than what we had seen.
I could see him doing either like something that looks a little more Geiger-esque, so a little biomechanical, or make it more organic looking. It's not a big metal ship. You may think this is a living creature because it looks rocky wood, moss, or whatever, it looks, or fleshy even. Yeah. And then it's like, oh no, that's just the ship. Well, what the hell is inside it? If the outside looks like a living thing, what the hell is inside? So
yeah, I think visually it would have been a much more interesting film. I think, not that Del Toro I think would lose it. I think Spielberg does a good job with characters and everything, and brings out good performances.
Yeah, like Tom Cruise is hit and miss for me. Like, I think he makes a lot of good stuff, but he plays that shitty asshole father really well, and it's a role you don't see Tom Cruise play. And then getting Dakota Fanning,
he's doing action stuff, but he's not an action hero in this, which I think is great. So I think what you might lose with Del Toro is like some of the family dynamic, but I think Del Toro's could handle it perfectly fine. But what you would gain is a much more visually appealing movie. And especially, like, I think the only real cool... I mean, there's lots of cool shots in Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds, but, like, I think there should have been more weight to, like, when he sees that red stuff for the first time, and then he, like, walks out, and it's just, like, a valley of, like, essentially harvested blood or whatever against the landscape. Like, you could have made that, like, a real terrifying epic sequence, which I don't think you really quite hit with Spielberg, where I think, like, you could have really played up the horror element with Del Toro on that one.
Yeah. Because, you know, Steven Spielberg plays it safe with a PG-13 for all family sort of movie, and Del Toro could really add that horror. You know, what happens when you get sucked up and you're in the pod with everybody else. I can see him going real crazy body horror on that.
Because, yeah, like you said, you just kind of see the blood spray or whatever, you don't want to see, but, like, if you, like, the camera follow the guy inside and then you just see him get, like, deteriorated or however they do it, whether they shred it or, you know, not that I necessarily want to see that, but you could make that grotesque. And, like, even the human stuff, because of, you know, a big part of the movie is, like, yeah, the aliens are obviously, like, this big scary threat, but when everyone's trying to survive, like, humans will just kill each other to try and survive. And maybe you make Tim Robbins' character even more scary, and, like, maybe you make him like a pedophile character, you know?
I kind of think he was. Because wasn't he trying to get Dakota Fanning to come with him?
Well, I mean, or
was he trying to get both of them?
Well, I think he knocks out Tom. Like, I feel like I don't remember him ever trying to, like, do anything with the daughter until he knocks Tom Cruise out. And he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of you. But I think that just might have been like, I killed your dad, or, like, I think I knocked out your dad, so it's like he's gonna get you killed, just come with me. I didn't really play it as, I don't remember it enough to really say, but I don't think it ever came off as pedophile to me. Now, if I
just assume older man, younger girl, he's probably a pedophile.
Sure. But yeah, I think you could have played the human element a lot more scary. You could have made Tim Robbins' character creepier. I think Del Toro would have made a better War of the Worlds than Spielberg.
Yeah, I don't think Spielberg could improve on Pan's Labyrinth. I do think Del Toro could make a much more interesting War of the Worlds. Because, like I said, I'm not huge on that story, especially the ending where it's just like, oh, they got our germs. They don't like our germs.
I mean, it's anticlimactic, but at the same time, I like the simplicity of it.
It's not shooting missiles at them.
Yeah. Because we've seen that a billion times, and we'll see it a billion times more. And I just like, it's like, oh, of course, like, we've developed the ability to, over thousands and thousands of years to, like, stop us from getting diseases.
I think they could have played that up in the movie. Like, say Dakota Fanning's character had a cold or was perpetually sick all the time, and they get sucked into the ship.
She just coughs in the alien's faces, and that just what kills
to be harvested or whatever, and they start like pumping her blood or whatever, and then all of a sudden, like, their machines are going off like, oh no, we don't want this one. This one's sick, and, you know, she's, you know, having a runny nose or whatever, and she wipes her hand, and then when it, like, goes to grab her and pull her along, it just, like, recoils back, and, you know, give little hints.
Snot.
You know, something that...
Yeah, what if we're the xenomorphs in their universe?
Exactly! If they played up to it, but it was just kind of like, oh, look, they're falling over. I wonder why. It was the germs. I think if they played with the germs within the story, that could have been more interesting and less anticlimactic.
I mean, it still works in the movie, but just thinking about it now, it seems weird that it's like, they talked about, like, oh, the lightning strikes were sending the pods. I mean, but I guess that was the pilots. It wasn't the ship.
Yeah, the ships were in the ground.
Yeah, the ships were in the ground for thousands of years.
Wait, the aliens were in the lightning?
Yeah, because she runs into, Tom Cruise runs into a lady from the news in a van as they're, like, going through. She's like, yeah, so we were watching this footage because they were filming the lightning, and then they play that slow motion, and you see, like, a little pod shoot into the ground where the lightning
Okay.
struck over and over again. So she was just like, I think that's them. They came down from the storm to get in their ships.
That storm was really cool looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
I remember the first time I saw that trailer during the Super Bowl.
And everything's blowing up behind them.
Blowing up behind it. I was like, this is going to be the coolest movie I've ever seen. Like, it was a great teaser trailer.
Yeah.
And
it's good right up until the sun dies. And then the rest of it is just not that interesting.
Yeah. Well, either way. So I think we're both agreeing Del Toro takes this round. But both great directors with great bodies of work who would do a good job doing each other's stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so that was an all right episode. You know,
don't undersell it. It was a quality episode.
Quality episode. I think our director versus director was more interesting than our This Meets That. We just didn't capture the lightning in the bottle like we did in our last episode. But oh well, you know, you live and you learn. If you want to contact us, email us at WRPLpodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter @WRPLpodcast. I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Have a good one.